Thank you for coming today. We're here on Treaty 6 territory, and I recognize the Métis people of Alberta who share a deep connection with the land. I'm Janis Irwin. I'm pleased to be joined by my colleague, Sigurdson, who is the NDP critic for seniors and housing, and Eric Antman, who is the executive director of End Poverty Edmonton. We're here to call on the UCP government to urgently address the growing homelessness crisis. We're here in Dawson Park in my riding of Edmonton Highlands, Norwood, which is home to many people who do not have access to a house to sleep in at night. In my 3 years of being an MLA, it's gotten a whole lot worse, and without immediate action from the UCP, it will continue to get more dire for the most vulnerable. Just yesterday, 98 bridge housing units at the Coliseum Inn closed. In April 2020, the Coliseum Inn was opened to provide safe and dignified temporary housing for Albertans experiencing houselessness until they were transferred to permanent residences. The bridge housing program was successful. At full capacity, the Coliseum Inn alone provided 98 additional spaces. And in the first 7 months, the bridge housing program supported 107 people into permanent housing. The provincial government, they did nothing to support these efforts or help replace the housing capacity that is lost here today. And yesterday, 53 residents left the facility, but into other accommodations, not into a permanent home. We want to thank Homeward Trust, Boyle Street Community Services, and housing workers all across Edmonton who worked around the clock to make sure that all residents have a place to go. But Jason Kenney and the UCP, they've failed each and every person who is leaving not going into a permanent home. Every Albertan deserves a safe place to call home. This is a basic human right. My constituency, where we are today, is no stranger to the struggles that are directly related to the lack of supports for vulnerable Albertans. And it seems it's only going to get worse. The City of Edmonton is going to have 501 less shelter beds as of June, and estimates that there are 2,800 people with no permanent home, with 700 to 800 people sleeping rough outside on any given night. And just 2 days ago, Edmonton City Council approved spending $860,000 to deal with the predicted surge in camps. So instead of getting into permanent housing, people who are in encampments are being cleared out of the communities that I represent. And I know that outreach teams are working so hard to try to help folks who are being forced out of their camps, but a crisis response is not a realistic housing plan. Tearing down a tent isn't going to create a new bed, give someone a roof over their head, or give them a sense of safety or security. But every day I'm inspired by my neighbors who carry on through countless challenges that are associated with poverty. But they shouldn't have to keep doing this. Without a safe home, people are dying. Everyone, every Edmontonian should have a safe place to call home. And they deserve a provincial government that cares. Thank you, and I will now turn it over to Lori.
Thank you, Janis. Edmonton and communities across the province are facing a crisis of growing poverty and homelessness, and the UCP must respond with urgency. All levels of government have a role to play to address the crisis of poverty, but funding affordable housing is by and large the role of the province. So too is providing the wraparound health supports needed to operate supportive housing. Edmonton has worked for many years to expand permanent supportive housing, but have received no support from the UCP. So today, I am calling on the UCP to provide the City of Edmonton with what they need to replace the units that were lost at the Coliseum Inn and expand permanent supportive housing across the city. Much of the work the city has done, such as the Coliseum Inn, has been in partnership with the federal government. Sadly, municipalities across the province have not been able to access federal funds without provincial backing. The province must leverage every available dollar they can through the National Housing Strategy. The UCP have left hundreds of millions of dollars untouched. We have received much less than other provinces per capita. While the UCP leaves available federal funding untouched and municipalities on their own, more and more Albertans are being forced to live on the streets. As poverty increases, there is a deep and urgent housing need across our province. For those people who were already in precarious housing situations at risk of experiencing homelessness, the situation is more dire than ever before. The case for investment in affordable housing has never been more clear. Chambers of commerce and business leaders are calling for investment in housing to be a part of economic recovery plans. Investment in housing will save money across government services, including the criminal justice system and healthcare, which is already overburdened because of the UCP's mismanagement. Enough is enough. This crisis of poverty and homelessness must be addressed. We need action today and more affordable housing right now. I will now turn this over to Eric Appman from the End Poverty Edmonton.
Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Janis. I am Eric Appman. I'm the Executive Director of End Poverty Edmonton. We work with frontline agencies, businesses, and not-for-profit organizations to advocate for the necessary change in our community. We also work closely with the 3 levels of government to support addressing poverty in Edmonton. We need these groups to work together, and particularly the levels of government who have a disproportionate influence on how our communities are affected. I'm going to deviate a little bit from what has been prepared because both Janis and Lori have covered a lot of what I need to address. Housing is a fundamental ingredient to addressing poverty in our community. And if we don't, we choose things like homelessness. We choose to ensure that families are broken up. We choose to build an environment where not all Albertans or Edmontonians can thrive because they spend all of their time trying to survive. And so if we address housing in our community, we create a different environment. As Lori said, the federal government has put hundreds of millions of dollars on the table to address the housing crisis in Alberta. The City of Edmonton has stepped up both with land and dollars to address the housing needs of Edmontonians, and the province has not. And so it's time for them to come to the table because if they don't, they are choosing those things. I'm here with people who are politicians, but poverty is not a political issue. 88% of Edmontonians and 92% of Albertans believe that addressing poverty is very important. It isn't a political issue. Housing isn't a political issue. It's something that needs to happen because we all deserve the opportunity to access the Alberta advantage. And without meeting those housing needs, again, we're in an environment where people can't thrive because they're working to survive.
Thanks, Eric, and of course, Janis. So now we're happy to take your questions.
I'll now open the floor for questions. Reminder, if joining by Zoom, use the raise hand function or *9 on the phone. All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much for watching, and to learn more, check out albertasfuture.ca.